big animals to baby animals is 3 out of 4. Number 2. Number of total sheep to total chickens. Okay. So here we have 1, 2, 3 sheep. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chickens. So we have 3 out of 5. Okay, number 3. Number 3 says, use the images to fill in the blanks of the following sentences. For every, there are what? So answers are going to vary for this question. So I said, for every 3 sheep, there are 15 animals. Okay, let's look at number 4. My family has 2 dogs and 3 cats. What's the ratio of cats to total number of animals in my house? Well, if I have 3 cats and the total number of animals in my house, we've got 3 cats, and total number of animals means I need to add my dogs and my cats to get 3 out of 5. So number 4 is 3 out of 5. So I have 3 cats to 5 total animals. Number 5 says the ratio of girls to boys in the middle school is 3 to 2. If 120 students are boys, how many are girls? So we want to set up a proportion to solve this question. Remember, a proportion says 2 ratios are equal to each other. So our first ratio we're going to set up is 3 over 2. And our next one is going to be x over 20. Where we have the 3 is the number of girls, and the 2 is the number of boys. And the 120 is the number of boys. So we're looking for the number of girls. Now we have to solve for x. We'll multiply opposite to get 360 is equal to 2x. To get x by itself, we'll divide both sides by 2 to get x is equal to 180. So how many are girls? There are 180 are girls. Number 6. Wells College in Aurora, New York was previously an all-girls college. In 2005, the college began to allow boys to enroll. By 2012, the ratio of boys to girls was 3 to 7. If there were 200 more girls than boys, how many boys were enrolled last year? Use a table, graph, or tape diagram to justify your answer. So, important things from this question. One thing I noticed was that the ratio of boys to girls was 3 to 7. And there's 200 more girls than boys. So I'm going to start off by making a tape diagram here. And this is how I represented the beginning of my question. Knowing that there's 7 to 3 ratio, and knowing that there's 200 more girls than boys, I'm going to start by making 7 boxes of 50 for a total of 350 girls. Now since it's 7 to 3, I'll make 3 boxes of 50 for boys. So we have 50, 100, and 150. So the question wants to know 50. That's one way to represent the answer. Another way to represent the answer is with a graph. So I set up a graph here where the y-axis represents the girls and the x-axis represents the boys. So I'll go ahead and graph my information here. So for every 50, let's see, I start here at 0. When there's 0 boys, there's 200 girls. And when there's 50 boys, there's 250 girls. When there's 100 boys, there's 300 girls. And when there's 150 boys, there's 350 girls. Okay, and look at that, a linear relationship. So I'll connect my dots. There's one more way to represent the question, the answer in this question, and that's through a table. Setting up a table, I've got boys on the left and girls on the right. If you remember from our graph, the girls represent the y-axis and the boys represent the x. So when we have 0 boys, there are 200 girls. And then it increases from there. Up 50 to make 250, up 100 to make 300, up 150 to make 350. This is how I could represent my answer using a table. Let's look at number 7. Alan is making banana bread with a recipe that uses bananas, flour, and sugar in a ratio of 6 to 3 to 2. Alan uses 3 cups of mashed bananas to make 1 loaf. How many cups of flour will he use? Show or explain how you found your answer. So the ratio of bananas to flour to sugar is 6 to 3 to 2. Now, Alan uses 3 cups of mashed bananas to make 1 loaf. How many cups of flour will he use? Okay, so it's saying that we're going to modify the recipe. So instead of having 6 bananas, we're just going to have 3 here. Okay, so how did we go from 6 to 3? We cut it in half, so that's like dividing by 2. So to make it an equivalent ratio for our recipe, we have to do the same thing to all 3 flour and sugar. Okay, so that means that we'll end up with 1.5 for flour and 1 for sugar. So this way our banana bread is going to taste okay by cutting the recipe in half. So that's a ratio. Eric uses Alan's recipe to make banana bread. So the same recipe that Alan used for number 7. He uses 6 cups of sugar. So how many loaves does Eric make? So we know the ratio for Alan's recipe is 3 to 1.5 to 1. So bananas to flour to sugar. And he used 6 cups of sugar. Okay, so let's see. So we have here 6 cups of sugar times 6. Okay, so that means that since I multiplied it 6 cups of sugar times 1, it means I'm going to have 6 loaves. Question number 8. For every 2 students that have a Samsung, 3 students have an iPhone. If there are 300 total students in the middle school, how many have a Samsung and how many have an iPhone? Okay, so we gotta set up a ratio to figure this question out here. And we want to look at making a ratio that is a part to a whole for our phones here. Okay, so let's start with Samsung phones. Let's figure out how many students have Samsung phones first. So we have 2, and there are 5 phones. So 2, 5, part to a whole. And then we have here our total number of students, which is 300 over x. To get 600 and to get 5x. Getting x by itself, I'll divide both sides by 5. And x equals 120. Okay, so that means that we have 120 out of the 300 students have iPhones. Or sorry, Samsungs. So you can probably figure out how many are remaining and calculate that. But just to prove it, let's check. So using a similar ratio of 5 to 3 to 5, because we have iPhones to total phones, and using that same total number of students, we'll use X. So now we're just trying to figure out what goes here, and remember these two things are equal. So you get 3 900 and 5 times X, which is 5X. Now we'll divide both sides by 5, and this should equal 180, because we know our total has to equal 300. And it makes sense because it says for every 2 students, 3 students have iPhones. So this one should be more, right? Because this is the number of iPhones. This is the number of Samsung phones. Okay, cool. Let's go on to the next question. There are 600 M&Ms in 15 packages. How many M&Ms are there per package? So we're looking for the unit rate here. Okay, so you remember a unit rate is, that's right, per 1. So we've got to make this over 1. So first we got to set up a rate here. Remember what a rate is, and there's the definition for a rate there. And you have to do 600 over 15. There's our rate. Now we need to make it a unit rate. So our rate here, and then we need to make it a unit rate. So what goes in the blank? Well, all you have to do is divide. We can do 600 divided by 15 to get 40. So the question is, how many M&Ms are there per package? Well, there are 40 M&Ms per package. You look at question number 10. Geneva paid $15.50 for 2 gallons of gas. How much did she pay per gallon? Remember, we're dealing with unit rates here. And there's the definition for the unit rate. Just a quick reminder. So that means it's per 1. So let's set up a rate. Remember, a rate is basically just an unsimplified unit rate. So we have $15.50 over 2 gallons. And again, we want it to be over 1. So we're basically just going to have to divide. And we divide 2 by 15.50 divided by 2. We end up with $7.75. So how much is it per gallon? $7.75. 1 bottle of lotion is 12,000 won, and a pack of 4 lotions is 50,000 won. Using the unit rate, find out which is the better deal. So we want to use the unit rate here, and the good news is the 1 bottle of lotion is already in per 1. So we can just do 12,000 won for 1 bottle. Now we have to figure out whether or not the 4 bottles of lotion are cheaper than the 1 bottle of lotion. So we'll set up a unit rate. So we have 50,000 over 4 lotions. Okay, so like I said, you've got to divide, and we'll divide the 50,000 into 4. 5 goes into 4 one time. We get 10. That's 2. That's 8. That's 5. And then we'll just go ahead and add the zeros. And we end up with 12,500 for per bottle of lotion. So what is the better deal? The 12,000 won for 1 bottle is the better deal. Okay, we have 7 hours to mow 4 lawns. At this rate, how many lawns can be mowed in 35 hours? All right, so like the last example, we do want to set up a unit rate, and this time we have to go a little bit further because we have to set up 2 equivalent ratios. Okay, so our first ratio is going to be 7 hours to 4 lawns. Now we want to set up an equivalent ratio, so it's important that we set up hours to hours. So we have 35 hours over x. Now to get x by itself, we'll multiply opposite. Because it's an equation, we can do that. To get 7x is equal to 140. We did 4 times 35. Divide both sides by 7 to get x is 20. Maybe you noticed that when you multiply the top and the bottom by 5, you can also get x. Although that doesn't work that way every time, in this example, it just so happens to. So there you go. There's question number 13. So we want to use that table there to figure out how many pounds are in 5 tons. Okay, so if you take another look at that table there, you can see that 1 ton equals 2,000 pounds, and there's 5 tons. So you'll simply just multiply 5 times 2,000. And 5 times 2,000. Look at number 14. So we have 72 fluid ounces, and we're trying to figure out how many cups are in 72 fluid ounces. All right, so if you take a look back at that chart in your notebook, you can see that when you have 1 cup equals 8 fluid ounces, so that means, let's see, there's 72 fluid ounces. So to figure out how many cups are in 72 fluid ounces, you simply just divide by the number of fluid ounces, which is 8. So you can just divide 72 by 8, and that's going to get us 9 cups. So how many 72 fluid ounces are equal to 9 cups? Number 15. How do you go for a 3-mile run? How many yards is that? So it's really easy. Just take a look at your conversion chart there, conversion factor chart, and you can see that 1 mile equals 1,760 yards. Well, if we've got to go 3 miles, how many yards would that be? Well, you could simply just do 1,760 times 3. And 1,760 times 3 is equal to 5,280 yards. So 3 miles is equal to 5,280 yards. So we are looking at question number 16. Question number 16 says, recipe calls for 8 cups of milk. How many pints is that? Okay, so we want to think about the conversion chart that we've been looking at for the last couple questions. And there it is. So if we have 8 cups, and let's see, 1 pint equals 2 cups. So the conversion factor is dividing by 2. So we simply just take 8 cups divided by 2, and that's going to tell us how many pints we have, which is 4. So we end up with 4 pints. So 8 cups equals 4 pints. Let's take a look at number 17. If 1 kilogram weighs 2.2 pounds, then what weighs more, 5.2 kgs or 11.5 pounds? Okay, so this question is great because it gave you the conversion factor already, and the conversion factor is 2.2. So all we have to do is multiply 5.2 times 2.2, and that'll tell us how much 5.2 kgs is in pounds. lbs is just another way of saying pounds, abbreviated. So we'll just go ahead and multiply this. We get 11.44, 11 and 44 hundredths. Okay, and that's lbs, pounds. So 5.2 kgs is equal to 11.44 lbs. So which one is greater? Would be the 11.5 lbs. All right, for questions 18, 19, and 20, we are asked to convert from a percent to a decimal. So starting with number 18, 5%. So you've got to move it 2 places from the right. So imagine that there's a decimal here, 1, 2. So we end up with 0.05. Number 19, 52%. Same thing. From the right, 1, 2. 52 hundredths. And then from the right, 1, 2, 1, and 41 hundredths. Great. Let's move on to 21. 21. What is 40% of 29? So if you look at the ratio, I should say proportion, is over of equals percent over 100. So that's how we're going to solve the next couple questions here. Okay, so we're just going to plug in is over of percent over 100. So we've got 40%. What is? So is what is? So that means the is the x, and the of is the 29, and the percent is 40 over 100. Now that we have our proportion set up, we can go ahead and figure out what x is. Okay, so we will cross multiply to get 100x. And 29 times 40 is 1160. And we'll divide both sides by 100. You get x equals, move the decimal 2 places from the right. And there we go. 11 and 6 tenths, or 11 and 60 hundredths would be the right way to say it. Let's move on to the next question. 3. 21 is 70% of what number? So we'll continue to use is over of equals percent over 100. So 21 is the is, and 70 is the percent. And we're looking for of what? So our proportion looks like this. Now we'll go ahead and figure out what the value for the of is by cross multiplying. And we'll get 70x is equal to 2100. Now we'll divide both sides by 70. And we'll get 2100 divided by 70, which is just x equals 30. So x is equal to 30. Next question. 23. What percent is 12 out of 25? So let's fill in our blanks. It says is over of, so is be 12 of 25. And we're missing our percent. Keyword is what? Over 100. There we go. And I'm just going to convert this into an x. Okay? So now I've got that set up. I'm going to go ahead and solve for x. I'll start by multiplying 25 times x so I get my variable on the left side. Next I'll multiply 12 times 100 to get 1200. After that, to get x by itself, I'll divide both sides by 25. To get x is equal to 48. So x is 48. If you didn't notice, if you multiply the bottom by 4, the top by 4, you also get 48. Great. Let's go on to the next question. A baseball pitcher won 80% of the games he pitched. If he pitched a total of 35 games, how many games did he win? So we are going to set up a proportion for this question here, and we're going to just modify our is over of percent over 100 strategy slightly to part over whole is equal to percent over 100. Now I just want to make sure that, see that? No, you can't. Okay. So we just modified it slightly, so now it's part over whole equals percent over 100. So now our part is missing, so that'll get an x, and our whole is 35 ball games. Our percent is 80%, and of course it's out of 100. There we go. Our percentage, our proportion is all set up. So I'll go ahead and start by multiplying x and 100 to get 100x. And then I'll multiply 35 times 80 to get 2800. Now I divide both sides by 100. And I could actually just cross off the zeros there and get x is equal to 28. And this makes sense because 80% of 35 is 28. It should be about close to a whole. So it's approaching that. Great. So 28 is our answer. Let's go on to the next question. Okay, number 25. At a sale, shirts were sold for $15 each. This price was 80% off their original price. What was the original price? So we're going to use our part over whole equals percent over 100 strategy again, like we used for the previous example. So we have part over whole equals percent over 100. Okay, so let's fill in the blanks here. So we have our percent, which is 80% out of 100 again, and our part is 15. And we don't know what our whole is, because we don't know what the original amount is. Okay, now we've got it set up here, so we can go ahead and get cross multiply. So we've got 15 times 100, which is 1500, and 80 times x, which is 80x. Now we'll divide both sides by 80 and get 1875. So what was the original price if they were sold at $15 each for the sale? It was $18.75.